Has there been a moment in your life where you know you should have said something? You know you should have stepped up. You know if you just would have prepared or done X, Y, and Z, you would have been so much better off. What happens when you give yourself the best chance at simply competing? What happens when a person is too afraid to even try? What happens when a person is too lazy to give themselves the best chance possible? What happens when a person procrastinates so much that they don't give themselves the best chance possible at simply winning? Have you ever had a moment where you know you should have spoke up, where you know you should have said something or done something? Have you ever been too afraid to try? How hard is it for you to muster up the courage to speak up and say the things that need to be said in the moments in which they need to be said? What happens when a person faces obstacles and challenges that seem far bigger than what they have within them? What happens when there are actions you should take or words you should say, things you need to be doing, but for whatever reason, you simply can't pull the trigger? What happens when a person needs to speak up but feels voiceless? What happens when you know you need to be taking action, but instead you procrastinate? What happens when you do the exact opposite of what it takes to get you where you need to be? So often we hear people talking about shooting your best shot. How can a person shoot their best shot if they don't even give themselves the chance? Today we want to talk about the idea of shooting your shot. And not only shooting your shot, but giving yourself the best chance at whatever it is you want to do. Because have you ever been too afraid to try? How hard is it for you to speak up? Today we want to talk about the idea of shooting your shot. And not just shooting your shot, but shooting your best shot. Giving it everything you have, putting forth the full effort, and not making excuses about why you didn't get it. Because oftentimes what we don't is because we didn't put in the work. So what happens when you flip that script and change from procrastination to locked in when it comes to success and shooting your shot? When you take certain risks, when you bet on yourself, when you know for a fact that you got it in you and you actually put forth the effort to give yourself every chance possible to compete, it changes you as a person. And because it changes you as a person, it's going to allow you to compete at a much higher level. There's a difference between a person who speaks up and shows bravery and courage even in the face of fear. Even when it didn't seem easy or maybe the odds were stacked against them. If the only people who can win are the people who take their shots, how can you justify never taking your shot? If the only people who make it to the top are the ones who are actually giving themselves the best chance of winning, how can you not prepare? A huge part of taking your shot isn't just being willing to take the first step, but it's preparing for the first step. It's making sure that you're ready. Preparing could look like making sure that you're confident enough. When it comes to having that mentality of a shooter, often the outcome doesn't even matter. When we talk about shooting our shot, we're talking about giving ourselves the best chance possible at success. But what does that really look like? But how do we do it? Well, first it starts with mindset. Once you realize that the outcome isn't the only or most important thing, and instead can learn to focus on the process, you immediately begin to see dividends. You get an immediate payoff. Knowing that the process is as important as the outcome, because that's what's going to dictate it, is everything. What if the thing that's deciding whether or not you make the shot is the preparation that led up to it? What if the very preparation that leads up to the shot is the reason why you make it or don't? Is the reason why you feel comfortable enough to take it or not? When it comes to athletes and the highest levels of competition, you literally can't win unless you're willing to take the shot. But even beyond being willing to take the shot, it's the person who prepared. It's the person who studied. It's the person who feels confident and comfortable in that moment because their preparation has prepared them for such. What happens when the days leading up to the time in which you got to shoot the shot, all you did was prepare? What happens if leading up to that big shot, you took the small chances to prepare? What happens if training was something that you embraced? What would happen if education and learning and crafting your skills is exactly what the doctor ordered? In order to shoot your shot with confidence, you gotta have the right mindset. Because while the outcome may matter, who and what is for you simply cannot be denied. And so if you're out there shooting your shot, measured, disciplined, dedicated, there's no way you won't make it. Whether we're talking about people, relationships, jobs, opportunities, whatever. What's for you will be for you. But often it's on the other side of you being willing to step up, prepare, and do what it takes to be able to shoot the shot. Many people want to be able to take the shot, but how many want to prepare? Many people want to be able to make the shot, but how many are willing to do what it takes to put themselves through the rigors in order to be prepared at the highest levels? Very few. So if you can be one of the ones who are, you'll be different. You'll set yourself apart. And I don't care what the opportunity is, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship or an apartment or whatever. So few people are willing to do what it takes to not only shoot the shot, but prepare themselves in advance so that they can take the best shot possible. If you know you need to have good credit and money saved up and certain things in place in order to get that home you want to get. You got to prepare for it ahead of time. You don't get to shoot the shot at the home of your dreams if you haven't been preparing for it. You can try, you can hope to do it, but if you haven't taken the steps, what's really going to happen? The athlete who prepares smart, dedicated, consistent, persistent, and prepares in a way that's different, they're usually going to be the ones who have the most success. It's not a guarantee, but you give yourself the best chance at whatever outcome it is. Maybe when you stack up the talent, one side was always going to win. But could you make it a little bit closer? Could you make the distance between winning and losing that much more narrow? I believe you can. And I believe that in doing so, eventually it'll build your character. What happens when every single time you take a shot, you know for a fact you prepared for it? That's going to lead to confidence. What happens when the preparation you did means that you don't have to be nervous in those high intensity moments? You'll be able to move and compete differently. You have far better outcomes, far more desirable results if you could simply prepare and pay homage and respect to the future that you say you want, to the future you know you're capable of. Forget about the fear of failure. Every time you shoot your shot and you get a no, you get one step closer to a yes. If you're worried about failure, fear not. Every single time you shoot your shot and you fail, you get one step closer to a yes. If you're applying for jobs and you don't get the first one, every single one you apply for, you get that much closer to it with the next one. Because throughout that process, you're learning, you're gathering information, you're building a database, and you're making it so that you're able to compete at a much higher level. When it comes to job opportunities, everybody has a dream job in mind. If you know for a fact that you'll only get one chance, one shot, one interview at that position, what do you do ahead of time? How many years in advance are you willing to commit to preparing? If you know for a fact that there's a certain job or an opportunity or a scholarship or school or whatever that you know for a fact is rare and precious, but also capable, how much time are you willing to put in ahead of the date in which you actually got to shoot the shot to make sure that you're prepared for it and that you got the best chance at succeeding? So many people claim they want it, but how bad do you really want it if you aren't willing to prepare? And for the crazy few who are willing to shoot that shot, what about the preparation? What about the days and weeks and months and years before the moment in which you actually got to prepare? What's your mind doing? What's your body doing? What's your spirit and emotion and energy doing? What are you telling yourself? How are you getting ready for that big moment? Do you hype it up so much in your head that it's too much for you to even perform? Or do you recognize and realize that you've done this 1,000 times, so doing it one more is nothing? If you prepare in such a way that you know that it's just another shot, that it's just another job, that it's just another whatever, you will be able to compete at a much higher level. Why? Because you don't have that attachment. You don't have that desperation of, if I don't get it, you're able to move freely. Your mindset and the way you think and analyze and hold yourself accountable is all going to lead up to you being able to shoot a much better shot. What happens when the shot that you shoot is crafted and skillful, timely and effective, as opposed to sloppy and uncoordinated and uneducated and unsophisticated? You have the opportunity right here, right now, to start to prepare for your shot. And if you're going to keep going down that path, we also got to be able to realize and identify what the actual shot looks like, what that moment feels like. Because if you don't know what it is, how can you take it? Many people miss the opportunity to shoot their shot because they don't even realize it came. What happens when the person of your dreams is right there in front of you and you're too afraid to say something, or you hesitate, or you're on your phone? All of these are moments in which you could prepare. What happens when the job of your dream is sitting right there across from you in the elevator, but you haven't been preparing that elevator speech? Did you prepare a 30-second pitch just in case you come across that person who could change your life? What happens if you've done it before, you've made the pitch multiple times, and you've been able to craft and hone and develop it into something far more refined than the person who's done it just once? Imagine the difference between a person who's making that pitch for the 1,000th time versus a person who's done it the first. Maybe the person who's done it the first time does it with a lot more enthusiasm, and maybe they knock it out of the park. But I would imagine that with more repetition comes more knowledge and expertise. You should be able to learn and figure this thing out. By the way, it probably won't even take 1,000 tries. If we think about the 80-20 rule, you'll receive 80% of your progress by doing just 20% of the work, which is beautiful. If making and taking 20% of your shots is all it takes to have 80% success, That sounds like a really good deal. And that's for the average person. But again, if we're talking about refining those skills, building that muscle, building that repetition and that knowledge base of what it feels like to take the shot, you could be higher than that. Who's to say you can't be 90 to 10 or 99 to 1%? Because whether it's 50, 100, 80, 20, whatever numbers, we know there are always outliers. What are the factors that make those outliers great? The fact is, when it comes to hitting a game winner, a buzzer beater, the odds are not in your favor. It's the end of the game. It's crunch time. Pressure is high. You're probably tired. You're probably sweaty. But if somehow, some way you can pull through, it will mean something about you. If somehow, some way you can even get the shot off, it's going to mean something about you. Well, there's somebody who's training and preparing for that very moment. There's somebody who waits until they're at their most tired moment to start taking those shots. If your training consists of the very thing you're going to be doing, how could you fail at it? If you know you struggle with talking to people, you got to find a way to start talking to more people. If you know you struggle with presentations and delivering speeches, you got to find a way to practice giving presentations and delivering speeches. You can start off on a much smaller scale and work your way up to something bigger. But you must start. You got to shoot your shot. You got to get going. Before you can hit the game winner, you probably got to hit a couple free throws at the practice line. Before you can throw that Hail Mary pass and make that game-winning play, you probably need to take a couple snaps in practice. You probably need to run a track a few times. You need to prepare in order to give yourself the best chance at getting it. And so when we talk about shooting our shot, we're not just shooting our shot, we're taking the best one possible. It's not random, it's deliberate. It's not half-hearted, it's intentional. It's not accidental, it's very much on purpose. And don't get it twisted. There are people who do all the preparation in the world, but when it comes to game time, they simply can't do it. So the more you put yourself in the game, the more you'll be prepared for it, the more comfortable you'll be. But also, it's so important to be able to fire that trigger, to be able to actually execute when the lights are brightest, when the game is biggest. That'll come from repetition and practice, but it'll also come from your mindset. If you constantly pump your brain up about how this is the biggest moment, the biggest shot, the most important whatever, you can make the moment so much bigger than what it actually is that you cripple yourself mentally by overthinking, over-evaluating, and making too much of the moment inside of their head. They've done all the preparation, they've done all the pre-work, and they still find a way to fumble the bag in the biggest moment. Why? It's because even though physically their body did the thing, they didn't get the mind right. And the mind is the most important thing. Your thoughts will precede the action. So the way in which your mind is working and operating is the way in which your body is. If you're stressed, tired, overworked, depressed, angry, upset, whatever, anything other than in control of your emotions, you may miss the opportunity. One of the greatest intelligences a person can have is emotional intelligence. We're humans, and there are times in which it's almost impossible to be entirely in control of everything you say and do emotionally. There'll be times in which we hurt, there'll be times in which there's joy, and we simply gotta let it out. But what I'm talking about is in the very specific moments where it's pressure, failure, or success. But what I'm talking about is something different. What I'm talking about is you as the narrator of your story, making sure that you're telling yourself the right thing in those moments. The shot is the same shot you took 1,000 times. But if you're telling yourself that it's bigger than what it is, you're going to make it far too bigger than what it is. Once you got the job done, you can celebrate and treat it like the big moment that it was. In that very moment, as precious as it is, you got to be able to execute. And this is where mindset is everything. There's a difference between a person who tells themselves, I've done this 1,000 times, I can do it one more, versus the person who says, I've done it 1,000 times, but this feels different. No, it's the same shot. If you choose to focus on the bright lights, if you choose to focus on the applause and jeers from the audience, you will choose to sabotage yourself. But that's not what the greatest of the greats do. That's not what the shooters who are really about that life do. If you're serious about shooting your shot, making it, and getting to that next level, you got to be serious about focusing your mind, having the right mindset, and making sure that you're in control of your emotions, because emotional intelligence is the #1 reason why people are able to actually sink the shot. It's a beautiful thing to be able to shoot your shot, but we want to be able to make it. We want to shoot it, we want it intentional, we want it prepared for, we want it planned for, but we want it to go in. If it doesn't, it's not the end of the world. We're doing this for a reason, with results in mind. And though we may fall short at times, if the process is right, we can live with those results. If you know for a fact that you gave it your all, that everything you could do, you did. You left no stone unturned. You did everything you could. You trained, you worked, you ran, whatever it took. You did everything you could leading up to that day, up to that moment, up to the shot. It's going to be a lot easier to live with it. Not saying it'll be easy, but it'll be more bearable to live with if you know you gave it your all. Sometimes the person you're competing with is just better. Sometimes the opportunity or timing simply wasn't right. But if you know for a fact that you gave it your all, the peace that comes with knowing that you gave it your all is a peace that so few will ever be able to experience. But you can. The regret of not doing things, of not taking your shot, of not taking the chance, going for that opportunity, it haunts people. It lives with them for the rest of their lives. And it's all because in some moment, they wouldn't take the shot. They might have been able to live with the no or not right now or maybe later. But the not knowing of not even being willing to take it, that's different. Or the knowing that you did take the shot, but you didn't give yourself the best chance of getting it, well, that's about the same thing, right? If you got the biggest test of your life coming up, and passing this test will mean everything. The way in which you prepare will determine the quality of the shot you take. If you study and prepared and did everything within your power to get the best possible outcome, chances are you will. And if you come up short, you'll know that you have what it takes to go back to the drawing board and do it over again. Because even in those rare opportunities where you don't get another chance, again, looking back on your life 20, 30, 40 years from now, just knowing that you gave it your all, that you gave every single thing, that's going to do something to your character. We're talking about progress versus perfection. Excellence in execution versus excuses and procrastination. You got to shoot your shot. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about shooting your shot is that you got to be the one to do it. Nobody can take it but you. Nobody can prepare but you. Nobody can get you ready but you, like you. And that can feel daunting, heavy, more than what you think you're capable of. But if you weren't capable of it, it wouldn't be right there in front of you. They say that God in the universe often gives us the same test over and over until we learn how to pass it. But what happens when you never learn that you should be preparing? What happens when consistently you reap the benefits and rewards of proper preparation? You'll be different. It changes your character, it'll change your outcomes, and it'll change the people around you. But what are you willing to give in order to protect your shot? Sometimes we may just need to get out. Maybe too much screen time is cooking your brain and you've been playing the video game too long, or on your phone or tablet or laptop or whatever. Maybe in order to get ready to prepare to take your shot, you need to become more social. Whatever the thing is, if you know for a fact what it takes ahead of time in order to get ready, how dare you not do it? How could you not do everything in your power in order to shoot the best shot you possibly can? There's a big difference between playing 2K versus basketball in real life, versus reading a book versus living an actual movie. There's a difference between watching the real versus living them. Oftentimes when people are too afraid to shoot their shot at whatever, they become lovers of excuses. They embrace the idea of coming up with a reason why it simply didn't work. And usually the reason is everything but the person in the mirror. But the accountable person, the honest person, the truthful person, the person who's actually destined for something great, they got no problem with looking in the mirror when it's them and being honest with themselves. Because that might just be the very missing piece that'll take them to the next level. If you're serious about shooting your shot, looking in the mirror can't be something you're afraid to do. It must be something that you embrace. And so if you're serious and you're really dedicated to shooting that shot and giving yourself the best chance possible, you got to prepare. You got to be willing to look in the mirror and be honest with yourself. Accountability is a beautiful thing when you're trying to become the best. Accountability just might be the difference between success and even more excuses. Between the life and lifestyle that you know is within reach versus constantly having an excuse about why you never got it. We all know somebody who's stuck in the past, who wishes that they would have, or maybe if they had another chance, or whatever. We don't want it to be you. How often do people who make excuses get the results in life that they truly want? I would argue that it's rare. Almost never. But it's so common that people do it. How often do people who make and embrace excuses ever become their best? Ever make it to the top? Ever truly live out their greatest potential? It's rare, if ever, because the very thing that would have catapulted them to the top is the very thing that they're avoiding. The person in the mirror, that accountability. So whether it's a job interview, or you apply for a grant, or you're pitching to investors, or it's a date, or it's an opportunity, whatever the case may be, preparation is going to be what gets you there. Whether it's writing the script of that very first film, whether it's editing and actually finishing the job, preparation is often the difference, the key factor between those who are successful and those who make excuses. It's the difference between those who reach their goals and make the shot versus those who are too afraid to even take it. To be able to execute in high pressure moments is a difficult thing to do, but the person who prepared and was consistent, spending time ahead of it, getting ready for that big moment, they're gonna execute. They're gonna have a leg up. They're gonna have an advantage. They're gonna have more of an opportunity. There's no reason why it couldn't be you, me, or any of us. And you gotta be good with both. You gotta be willing to take the shot, but you gotta prepare yourself for the shot so that when you do it, it's nothing to it. The reason so many people fail to execute is because they also fail to prepare. The thing that we see, the thing that we feel most, the big moment that feels like the massive failure was actually a plan set into motion weeks, months, maybe even years ago by the character and skills and habits that you decided to develop or not. If you never developed the skills of a great speaker, but becoming a great orator is exactly what you need in order to achieve the desired outcomes, you got to get started. If you know that you want to consistently compete and perform at the highest levels of finance, education, business, art, creativity, emotional intelligence, you name the thing, you got to prepare, you got to be willing to shoot the shot, and you got to actually do it. All of the preparation in the world, as beautiful as it may be, still doesn't amount to shooting that shot. And the last thing we want to talk about is actually being selective. Shooting your shot doesn't mean you take every single shot possible. And so if you've been preparing, if you've been getting ready, doesn't mean you throw every single punch, spend every single dollar, make every single investment. If you study, if you prepare, if you do the work ahead of time, you'll already know. Throwing a Hail Mary too early is a terrible idea. Taking a buzzer beater when it's 10 minutes left to go isn't the best move. Part of that preparation is learning to be selective in the shots you take, to take the best, wisest shots. And maybe, just maybe, you need to do everything, but chances are your education and knowledge that you've developed in getting ready for this is probably going to have you on a path to being more selective. Because every shot isn't the right shot, nor is it even a good one. And being able to have that discernment between the two, between when I should take it versus when I should pass, when I should hold on versus when the timing is right, that's another part of the game too. And again, the more you prepare, the more you have that discernment. The more you get ready, the more you have the knowledge, the mental know-how, the confidence, and the ability to execute. All of this intelligence and emotional intelligence is coming from preparation. And once you got the preparation, theoretically, you should be willing and able to execute. So get started. The biggest regrets in my life all come from things I didn't do, actions I didn't take, moments in which I didn't prepare, and shots that I simply didn't take. Maybe I didn't try hard enough or soon enough. Maybe I wasn't effective enough or efficient enough. But even in those moments of failure, if you can learn the lesson, if you can gather some good data, and if you can figure out where you went wrong, even if you missed a shot, the fact that you took it means that you're gonna get something out of it. Because if the hurt and heartbreak of not being able to make and or take that shot is the only thing you get from taking it, well, I would say it's worth it. Sometimes in taking your shot, the only thing you get is heartbreak and agony. But that very feeling might be the fuel that drives you to become your best. And if you never took the shot, if you weren't even in the game, you wouldn't know what it feels like. You gotta be willing to take the shot. But ultimately, you got to take the shot. Sometimes the only way to win is to lose first. And sometimes the only way to lose first is by taking your shot. So by all means, embrace strategy, focus on that process, and you'll be able to shoot your shot. Even if you miss it, you'll come away with something positive. But I got a feeling that if you prepare and you do the things that it takes, eventually it's gonna be nothing but cash. Maybe the first time you take it, it doesn't go in. Maybe the second or third, it doesn't either. But if you continue to prepare and be consistent and do what it takes in order to get you closer and better, there's no way it won't happen for you. And so few people are willing to do it. So if you can be one of the few willing to execute, there's no limit to how far you can go. This is the Infinite Evolution. Shoot your shot.